Cheers and welcome to the second Perspectives in Coffee. Today I'm really excited to have a good friend and an emerging partner in coffee, Seife. Seife is going to tell us about Ethiopian coffee, upcoming harvest. He and I are going to pull together the first pieces. If you watched episode 1 of Perspectives, then you met Tim Hines, Q Grader and instructor with the CQI. Seife, you're going to want to see, he is the host for our course that we're putting together in Addis, Ethiopia, March 2022. So check that out. Course codes, green coffee, sensory. I want you to get started with your SCA so that you're more than ready for your Q courses. And keep growing. Welcome to the community. Reach out, connect with me, connect with Seife, Tim, anyone else that's on the Perspectives program. And if you have any questions, if you want to reach out to me or Seife, put them in the comments on this video. Connect with us. If you have great ideas for future Perspectives in Coffee, let me know, because these will keep on coming, about one episode every month. Look forward to talking with you. Enjoy the show.
An anaerobic processed coffee that was blue cheese was in its descriptor, and it was really, really funky. I mean, it was bacteria makes anaerobic coffee, bacteria makes cheese, and it did have this funky blue cheese, but it also had this kind of rum whiskey like. Hi, I'm Adam.
Hi, I'm Seife, and
this is Perspectives in Coffee. Welcome to Perspectives in Coffee. This is a place where coffee professionals from around the world get to share their insights and their experiences. So today we'll explore Ethiopia, what many believe is the birthplace of Arabica coffee, working with coffee growers, managing coffee processing stations. We'll touch on coffee exporting as well. We've got an expert with us today. Seife has joined us. And as always, we're going to have some fun and some laughs along the way. My name is Adam, founder of Rock Coffee and the lead trainer at How To Coffee Pro. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. If you're a subscriber and learner with us already, then you know the goal is to provide a coffee community that inspires and informs you to take action. So we're going to try to have some action points for you today. Do something bold, challenge yourself on this coffee playground to make life better for yourself, for your team, for your clients, and for the world. Be sure to watch to the end, because Seife and I have some really good gifts, some giveaways, some announcements that we want to share with you, and you're not going to want to miss those. You can find more at rock.coffee. And if you like this video, subscribe, comment, like. It really helps us. Share it with a friend. All right, so let's jump in with Seife today. He is the face of Seife's Coffee, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
All right. So yes, my name is Seife, and my last name is Tuuloskorpi. I'm right now in Ethiopia, where I actually was born in Ethiopia, but I've been raised and lived all my life in Sweden. And my last name, just a shorties about that, it's my grandmom is from Finland. So I have this long, very beautiful last name, Tuuloskorpi, which nobody can really say.
Does it have meaning? Does Seife have meaning?
Yeah, it's actually from the very north of Finland, which is close to Russia. So it's in Karelian, and that name has actually, it's the wilderness. Name is wilderness. It has
the wilderness. Nice.
Yeah. Exactly.
You are a wild man.
Somehow,
all right.
Yes. Yeah. So I'm right now in Ethiopia, and for the last 11 years actually, I've been working with coffee here in Ethiopia. So for me, I mean, the journey that started out for coffee for me was that I've always been like an entrepreneur, working, but I worked in total different sector before. I had my own computer company for 20 years in Sweden, but I always wanted to do something between Sweden and Ethiopia and use my sort of skills. But I had a very naive view in the beginning that I could help, poor people to get richer, or get the better lifestyles and so on. I still have that belief, but I have a more realistic view of it today, I would say. But so that it become coffee, it wasn't really like, it could have been, in the beginning, I was actually looking on maybe to export or from Sweden, secondhand computers and hardware and so on. But I always had this in my back head, like, Ethiopian coffee and, Sweden and so on. So, and then I would start digging into that. This is like 12, 15 years ago. So at that time, it was Ethiopia's origin wasn't that exposed as it is today. Meaning that in the on the shelf, coffee shelves, you didn't see Ethiopia as a name in the same way that you see it today.
Single origins, we weren't even focused on those. And
exactly, yeah. So the whole idea was, in the beginning, I was looking into this, and then I saw like, most of the coffee from Ethiopia is sold through German traders, and then passed to Sweden, and then puts into a blend, and nobody really knows the origin and who's been buying or selling. No transparency at all. So my idea was like, here's a business. I can sort of see that you can actually expose being transparent and showing that this coffee comes from this origin and so on. People would be interested in that. But I, as I said, a very naive view of because I didn't know anybody in coffee, and I didn't know anything about coffee.
Wow.
And so I actually started by basically calling every roasters in Sweden. And I was a little bit like, salesman, exaggerating, telling them that, I know this and this and this about coffee. This type of person you don't really want to talk about it with. But I had a good intention though, but how it could be. So most of the people, they were actually hanging up and, didn't take my calls or anything like that. But those are actually buyers of coffee from me today, which is a great feeling, right? But I totally understand them. Like, I have people calling me or email me today. And I try to be patient, but you somehow, I do understand where I come from, sort of, when I So, but it's also like, as you mentioned about like where you want to go and what you want to do with your life and so on. I mean, be persistent somehow. Don't give up what you actually want to do and so on. Things, for me, it's one of the toughest decisions I've made to start coffee. To not work with my company in Sweden and actually basically move to Ethiopia. I've been more in Ethiopia than any other place on earth last 12 years.
Wow.
So that tells you my interest and so on. And there's been some really tough years here, challenges and so on. It's for every business in the beginning and so on, but still are challenges.
Great. Well, that was a great introduction. I'm learning so much now that we haven't talked about specifically before, but that's fantastic. You're already giving us some great advice and encouragement. I love that in the beginning, you just had to do sales. You just had to call them. You got the list of roasters. They hung up on you. In the beginning, you just have to try. You have to get your first customers. And then once you have your first customers, you can start rolling out your first product. And then eventually you continue to do a great job. And those guys that hung up on you, they start calling you. That's just testament to hard work. And
that's good.
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. Coffee is not easy work.
No.
Yeah.
It's a very dynamic product for everybody in any origin. For buyers, I do understand that. I just want to add a short perspective also about this in the beginning of the journey that I did.
Okay.
So I mean, you have that part when I started calling the roasters in Sweden, and they actually hang up on me, and and so on. But I mean, I not in any offended way, but I can understand if people are busy and they hear this crazy guy talking about things that he don't know.
Yeah.
But anyhow, then I said, like, now it's time to sort of go to Ethiopia and actually get the product and so on. And so I went to the Swedish to the Ethiopian embassy in Sweden.
Okay.
And told them, like, I'm gonna start importing directly from Ethiopia to Sweden coffee. And they say, like, here is a list of exporters. Good luck.
Wow.
And that's and then I went to come here to Addis Ababa, and I sat in a hotel, and I just started calling on that list.
Wow.
Calling every exporters. And I mean, I don't speak Amharic. Now I sort of understand more and more after 12 years here. But I mean, it's not an easy language. I mean, for some people, it's very easy to, capture that. But it's a beautiful language, but it's somehow difficult.
Sure.
Very different from Swedish. Anyhow, what happened is, so I sit there and I keep calling, and and one after another comes, because I want to buy, right? So anybody pops up. And then I made, like, in the lobby there, like, my own office. So people were coming in one by one, and they want to sell anything but coffee. They had everything that they want to sell. But some were actually coffee exporters, and they gave me samples, and we to communicate and so on. But then after like 3 weeks doing this, somebody called on my local phone, and I said, "Whoa, I got a call!"
Wow!
And I pick it up, and that was Teddy, an exporter here today, who called me and said, "I heard you looking for coffee," and I said, "Yes." And that was like this sort of beginning of so I actually ended up buying my first container through. He was actually working together with working for another exporter, but he convinced me to buy coffee from that exporter that he worked with. And to end this story, which become very long now, it's that he is now one of the biggest exporter here in Ethiopia. And I can mention them, the BNT. And we have this great relationship today and so on. But, we have this unique history together, right?
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, so that's
that is, we call that bootstrapping. You just, right? You just have to pull up your boots by the straps, and you need to march through the mud. You had so you had a list of exporters. Not coffee exporters. You had a list of exporters from Sweden. That's amazing. So you're calling people and they're like, I sell marble. I sell rice. I sell flowers. They're like, why are you calling me coffee guy? Wow. Talk about persistence. That's amazing.
Then,
okay.
I remember this guy was chasing. Let's
move on. We got to get into coffee. No more flowers and stuff. Well,
exactly.
I wanted you to walk us through your value chain. So we've changed language in like the Specialty Coffee Association with courses, and some of the other language recently has changed from supply chain to value chain, because we have this coffee value chain where we have growers and producers who are creating coffee with value. And then every step in that process, we seek to protect, preserve, amplify, not disrupt the value that started in that coffee. So I love the value chain language.
I understand that.
And we're going to tell about, later in the video, we're going to tell about how we met, some of those first impressions, which I'm looking forward to hearing as well. I've never asked you that. What's your first impression of me?
I have a story for that too.
But I will say, as a lead in, one of the first things that started to engender me to you, to your company and your coffees, was I immediately saw your commitment to transparency. And you were doing it there was action behind the talk. So many people talk about transparency, and you are doing it in many ways. And so walk us through your value chain: growing coffee in Ethiopia, harvesting, when and how, work to processing, when and how, post-processing. And if you want to move into sales and post-sales, this is kind of Seife's value chain. So I'd love to just see that for people who are, we'll have green coffee buyers, importers and exporters, roasters, and others who are watching this video. And this is very informative as we just kind of see how your process plays out.
So, I mean, it's definitely my view of it, and people could have a different view of it, and so on. There's a lot of exporters and buyers in it. So the industry is big, but definitely, I mean, so I would give you my perspective over these 12 years I've been working here, and so I mean, it's all start with the farmer, obviously. So in Ethiopia, you have like I would say it's about 97% of the farmers in Ethiopia are smallhold farmers.
Yeah.
This means that they are owned by like 1.5 hectares or something like that, even less, depending on how you calculate it. Because I mean, it could be a whole family together for that 1.5 hectares. But statistically, they say about each farmer has 1.5 hectares.
Right, and these are family units.
Yeah, so they own by their families, right?
Right.
So we call it backyard coffee here, simply. So what they have there is like they grow coffee, and they would grow mango, they will grow avocado, banana, different species, right? And so it's a cash crop grown for them. And this is important to understand, because when it comes to traceability and these things, so let me just firstly say, like 97% is like smallhold farmers, and then you have estate farmers, which could be like anything from 30 hectares up to like we don't actually have, there is a couple of few which is around thousands, but it's not many of them in Ethiopia.
Okay.
There is also some government owned, and there is also private owned, which are larger, but there is not many of them in numbers. So most of the coffee, majority of the coffee comes from these smallhold farmers.
Right.
And that's for the transparency, like the traceability of that. It's like, so you have the farmer, and then you come to the washing station, the process owner, the supplier. I call them producers, like the suppliers in the chain. So that's where, the supplier, he owns a washing station, and he or she will be the one who buys the cherries from the farmers. So around one washing station, you can have like thousands of different smallhold farmers. Actually, you have more. And then you have a couple of so there will be a couple of if we take Kocher, for instance, in Jirgachef as an example, you will have like 4 or 5 different washing stations. There are rules of how close they could be to each other and so So this washing station is actually competing on buying the cherries from the farmers. Depending on how your structure is, how smart you are, and how much you pay in pre-advance, and your relationship to your farmers around that area. I mean, how much you actually invested in your relationship with the farmers. They will come to you and sell the cherries to you.
So
So
that first stage, you have these hundreds or 1,000 smallholder farms surrounding a washing station, and that first stage in transparency relationship is with that supplier washing station and all of these farmers. How far away will these farmers be, or drive or carry their cherries?
Yeah, so they will go pretty far. And then you have another thing which adds to the complexity of the traceability is that you have collecting sites. So farmers, what they create is, like, we call it the first market place, where actually the shares are traded. So these collecting sites, so then from our washing station, we send out trucks, and they will go to these different collecting sites. And then we're bargaining with the farmers directly there. So, I mean, what I tried to explain is, like, when you get asked from a buyer, who actually produced this batch?
Yeah.
It's a complex way to answer it, right? I mean, you cannot 100% say that this from this. You can tell them from which region and so on, but because it's not allowed to cross regions, so you cannot go from Cote d'Ivoire to let's say Gedeb and sell your cherries. That's not. I mean, that's illegal to do that. But the region, the district in itself will be big. So what we try to do to create traceability, and also not only because of the traceability, the factor that we actually want to improve the quality, control the cherries, and so on. We created farm groups outside of our washing station. So we have, like, different farm groups where we sort of together with the farmers talked about how to the importances of pruning, the importances of fertilizing. Now, when I'm talking about fertilizing, it's organic fertilizing, but the importance in so and so. So the farmers, they know these basic things, right? But they don't have the right incentive to actually do that. But we encourage them both by in our meetings and the relationship, but also actually by we have to pay them more money for their work.
Yeah.
So what we do and what we try to do is pay more for red cherries. I mean, so we try to do some cherry selection, and then we will pay extra for the red cherries and so on. It's not an easy thing because it's a very you have also, like, local people, local historical things which go on there. You cannot just change price as you want. But we definitely encourage our farmers to do that, and we are improving the premium for them also.
Great.
So by doing that, we can follow and see the sort of the traceability from these farmers.
Because you have farm groups that you're working with, and a majority of your coffee is coming from these farm groups that can be traced in this shipment to the washing station. Because that's kind of the first really challenging part, is you've got all these people bringing their coffees to a collecting site. And so how do you know where they came from, or if they were well raised, if they were more ripe, if they were fertilized well. So that's the first stage. And then you get them eventually to your washing stations, and they've been recorded and documented accordingly.
Yeah. So exactly. And then for us, it's like, that becomes a lot. So we can create a lot from this farm group, and a lot from this farm group. So we actually separate that through the whole process. At the farm gate, we start to, all farmers by law, they are registered when they come and sell the cherries to us, to supply to our washing stations. Which means that so we register them, we know who they are, and so on. In that sense, that we have documentation on them, and then we do the first step is that we do cherry selections. Actually, first we actually do water density.
Right.
Yeah.
Various sorting. So you're sorting density, ripeness.
Yep. Yeah. So you get the floaters out directly. And then after that, we have tables where we actually do cherry sorting.
Wow.
And we notice that that this helps us very much through the whole process afterwards, because we get rid of a lot of things there. And when I say get rid of it, it's not many people, mostly here, has a view of that. I'm losing cherries. But what we actually do, I believe that every coffee has its home. So there is no bad coffee in that sense. There is a buyer, a need for any coffee. So I try really to explain this for farmers, and on the washing station, I try to explain that there's a value for everything, but there is a different value. We have to separate, and that's how we increase the value of each category. So you have different grades. If you mix these grades together, you actually the actual price you get is lower.
Right.
And I try to explain the kind of basic things, but anyway. So we do cherry selection. It takes time. It needs a lot of labor work and so on, but it's worth it.
Good.
Definitely worth it.
So
often, sorry.
For the sake of time, I apologize. I asked you about processing. So let's not go into like pulping and mucilage and all of the different steps in processing. For that, they can join one of my green coffee courses or get a book. They can learn lots of things on processing. What I'd love to kind of move into with this, because we're in Seife's value chain. So then how do you choose, and maybe what percentages or what labor goes into choosing, we're going to wash these coffees, we're going to dry these naturally, we're going to do these special processing fermentation. So let's just kind of move to like finishing. Finishing the product.
So I mean, it's a really good question why we choose washed and natural. I mean, the cherries in itself has no meaning for specifically natural or washed coffees, right? You can do whatever you want. It's actually the timing which create so you do washed because they need less time on the drying table. And in the beginning, so we start with washed. And in the beginning, we have you still have raining coming. So like, let's say we start the harvest season starts actually roughly in end of September, beginning of October in the lowland areas and like in lower altitudes. And you will have it stretch over until February, and sometimes even in March you can have processing, harvesting coffees. So it's a big country, and it's a very the harvesting season is long, but it's only one, so we don't have fly crops and those things here. And so in the beginning, there's still, I mean, so when you let's say in some areas where they start very early, they will actually pick, and it's still raining season.
Wow.
Which is very difficult to dry. So here we don't have any mechanical dryings and so on. There is a couple of few, but 99% is definitely dried on African beds.
So in the beginning, you're going to be washing most of the coffees for speed and because it's still raining.
Yeah, so so the washed coffee has like less drying time. Right, so it's easier to use that because you have to cover the coffee as soon as it starts raining and so. So that's the major reason. And then I mean, people are start now because of like the specialty preparation and those things. They and those are like almost like doing mostly their specialty coffees, they would actually start even now with naturals and specialty preparation.
Okay.
But there is also one other thing I want to add to this, one other perspective that, so when you have a washing station, they basically closed down the washing station and built up the new washing station for every year. That's up and down every year, which is, you can ask why and all these things. That's another story, right?
Sure.
But so they need some time to actually calibrate the whole thing. And you have new seasonal work coming, and so the first coffees, and you also need to see the first coffees coming in. What type? I mean, what is the percentage of floaters? How is the actually? You have to adjust your pulp machines and so on to the size of the beans or the cherries. So all these things will matters, right? So you want. I usually say that is like, so we have the first, second, and third picking. When you come into the second picking, that's actually when you start to get everything calibrated and also getting good cherries and from a little bit higher altitudes and so on. So that's when it start to begin really exciting.
Okay, great. So then how do you choose, or is it just timing, or when do you start doing your naturals, and what is your plan for this harvest season? It's going to be harvest in a month. And so how many percentage wise washed or natural or special processed coffees are you considering?
So I mean, I would say the majority is still washed coffees for us, because we also do some great, I call it like grade 2 coffees, like somehow a good grade 2 coffees that we sell on on market, and that's like in volume a large part,
right?
But when it comes to the we also do a lot of naturals and so on. So the percentage would be somehow, I mean, the real specialty preparation coffees is not more than 10% maximum,
right?
Which is I mean, so it's still, for me, that coffee, we put in a lot of work into that coffee, and you always risk. I mean, when you try to produce, let's say, 100 bags of 60 kgs, you actually use a lot more coffees, much more coffees. A lot of things happen through the process of that. Which people don't really, they just see the end product and then so but still it's not waste, so that coffee will go for some other category, and so on. However, for us it's like that is like 10% and so on. Now I see, I mean, other exporters, they are increasing that in massive and so on. I still believe that you cannot make really exclusive coffee in that volume.
Yeah.
So people tend to sort of think,
right.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I've had, let's talk about your coffees specifically that are going to be coming up for this next 2021 season. They're going to be for sale early 2022. I've tried several of your different coffees. I've had samples several times. I've shared them with friends at roasteries, and they're fantastic coffees. Your washed coffees are clean, bright, everything you want from, a Guji and a Sidama and a Yirgacheffe. And then you also have some really great fruity naturals. You tend to have naturals that are not overly fermented, which I particularly love. I just love really red fruit, juicy. But you also sent me an anaerobic processed coffee that was blue cheese was in its descriptor, and it was really, really funky. I mean, it was bacteria makes anaerobic coffee, bacteria makes cheese, and it did have this funky blue cheese, but it also had this kind of rum whiskey, like it was like a whiskey barrel. So anyways, tell us about some of your coffees that are coming up, because I want listeners to know like where they can find exceptional coffees.
So basically we are in Guji, we are in Gedab, we are in Sidama, and in Limmo. So where we have our more specialty coffees is in like definitely in Guji. We have in Uraga, Shakiso, Anasora is places where we have our coffees where we're working with our own coffees, and also direct like vertical integration agreement with other washing stations.
Okay.
We buy all their coffees. And then we have in Gedab, which is a fantastic coffees. I mean, it's always come out really great. My favorite coffees comes from Gedab. The flavors coming up from that area, especially the naturals, are amazing for me. And I'm so glad that we actually have our own washing station there and so on. So one of the things that we look for in the regions is like, first of all, I mean, you want to work with get some type of relationship with the farmers on the ground, right? That's how you sort of start it. But you also need to have, like, if you look on the environment in that area. So like when you talk about Shakiso, for instance, and talk about Gedeb, compared to Sidama, Yirgacheffe, and Limmu, which is in the southwest in Jimma area, you have what's really interesting in Shakiso, for instance, and in Gedeb, is that you have a lot of young trees, and so soil and so on will definitely be different wherever you go. But you have something specific in the soil in Gedeb, definitely, because the coffee comes out tremendous there. But on average, you have much more younger trees in both of these areas, Shakiso and Gedeb, which tend to give this really like dense cherries. You can actually work on in the process. So those are the things that we really look into, like how they treat the trees, and how much experience they have, and so on. So the backside of that is that when you come to an area like Gedeb, they don't have the same experience as they have in Sidama,
right?
Processing and so on. But if you come to Yirgacheffe, for instance, it's very congested. So you have a lot of farmers tied to each other, and the washing stations and so on. But when you come to, like in Shakiso especially, it's very like wide and open, and so each station is not the same competition about the cherries and so on.
Okay.
I guess
I'm looking at the time. I can't believe we've already been talking for we're going on an hour pretty soon here. I know that this happens. We could have a part 1, 2, 3 together, I'm sure. So let's start landing the plane. Let's start bringing this in.
Yes.
So we're going to have some action points here, where you have some coffee maps of these regions that you're talking about, regions you work in and other growing regions in Ethiopia. So those are going to be provided as a download, which is super exciting. And so I'm going to let you share how you connect and how you engage with people for samples, prospective buyers. Who's your target buyer? What's your ideal importer or roaster customer look like?
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me personally, I'm very much like, I dedicate my time for one person or small roaster buying one bag, and then as much as I dedicate my time for somebody who actually buy a full container and so on. They're both equally valuable for me. But I mean, there is a practical
right
perspective of this, right? I only sell coffee directly from our warehouse here in Addis, Ethiopia. And actually it's fun to see how they grow. So they tend to buy more and more and more. Like these medium-sized roasters who actually wants to have something really good in their portfolio, where they, so let's say they want to have 30 bags or 50 bags of specialty, something that they're gonna do a special edition of. something really natural, funky,
Mm-hmm.
or you know, clean, washed citric, really, you know. So that buyer can actually mix that container by buying some grade 2 and you know, make
Right.
that shipment worth, right? So that's one category of the buyers that I have. And then I have also, like in Europe, in Scandinavia, I usually send like 1 or 2 containers where I have mixed roasters actually go together and they buy the coffees. So, but I mean, my buyers are definitely roasters who look for quality coffee.
Right.
And wants
Right.
to have the transparency, and wants to have the story to the coffee, and so on. Medium-sized roasters who wants to do some added value to their coffees.
Great. Yeah, and so for anyone who wants to, they should check out your website. You have maybe in your website or follow up, you have some really great PDFs as well on the specific farms or specific mills that coffees are coming from. And you communicate your story on your website and also on your social media, Instagram, with just a refreshing clarity, I think, for roasters who want to communicate the story. There are some roasters who want to make themselves look good to the public. And then there are roasters who want to say, this is how we're part of a bigger coffee story. And I think your materials are great for those types of roasters who say, we want to highlight our growers, the people who are doing the work on the ground in Ethiopia, the people we're buying from, because you can see this as a whole line of trust. And there's a lot of customers who want coffee that I can see among the multiple stages until this reaches my cup. Someone has been intentional. And so your materials are great for that.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And
and
as you said, it's about, I mean, highlighting the farmers, highlighting the people, you know, around
the
whole value chain.
So let's move into how we met. Let's start closing this. We'll go with some personal questions. So I'm going to introduce this. We're in Berlin, Germany, 2019, World of Coffee. So this is June of 2019. And we get off of a couple friends and we are heading to the World of Coffee conference. This is like, or we're kind of lost. There's this long gate that's barricading the subway metro line and then the convention center. And we're walking up and down this and we see this lone man with lots of tables and boxes and things. And he's also kind of lost. So we stop and ask you for directions and you kind of help us and we're lost together and we carry some of your stuff and it was hot. And I remember seeing you and I saw like, you're sweating. Like my first vision of you is like, here's this guy hauling tons of stuff and trying to set up his table on the first day. And so we just like picked up a bunch of stuff and we were lost together. That was a great starting point because, you know, just like in coffee, so many of us start out and we're just all lost. We're trying to find our way. And so that was our first meeting. And I don't think it was till like the next day when I found you at your booth that I realized like Seife is a legit grower and he's got like all these awesome coffee samples that he's cupping. And I'm like, oh, hey, buddy, you know, like, because we were lost together.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I was like, you know, and I actually landed that day also. So it was, you know.
So tired.
But I do remember how you came together with, I think her name is Betty or
Beza.
Beza, yeah.
Yep.
And the thing is, even when I came back to Ethiopia, because I do remember when you came in copying and you actually, you know, you put out good questions and, you know, all these things. So it wasn't actually until I came back and I met Beza here in Ethiopia. I thought like you were married. And that was so embarrassing when I stopped talking to her. But I do have, and just to give you, I mean, for me, you are actually doing like a really great job. And I like the seriousness of what you do. I mean, that you actually take, you know, you have good values and you actually take I mean, there's a lot of roasters, they are very serious and so on, but I mean, the way you present and learn, you know, spread out your knowledge and so on, I really appreciate that. And I see your dedication also. So from another dedicated person, so I really appreciate that.
Right. Yeah, we didn't have enough time for me to tell you I'm happily married with children in America. You just see me, and she was always dressed really nice. Like she had traditional Ethiopian, like colorful garb. I think some people were coming to the booth like to take pictures with her. And so you thought I had like an Ethiopian wife or girlfriend. And I said, oh no, like, so at that time I was working with her and we were at the Ethiopian Green Coffee Association, Ethiopian Coffee Association booth, and we were representing some Ethiopian coffees. Yeah, fun times. And just amazing to keep in touch over the years. You sent me samples, I've shared them with people. And so we're taking this to the next level now, which is really exciting. And if anyone saw the previous episode of Perspectives in Coffee with Tim Hines, the Q Grader, he and I announced that we will be running some Q courses. We're going to run one in Portland, and we're hoping for January 2022. And then we said we were going to run one in Addis, Ethiopia, March next year, 2022. And now it's with joy that I get to introduce our host. It's like this, you know, culmination point. You have a beautiful coffee lab, an office, and a team, and you have the intention, we're preparing your lab to be the host lab for that Q course. And we're hoping to find probably 12 students. That's how we're going to try to set up and pre-book this class. We'd love to have, you know, maybe about half of the class local. There's hundreds of coffee professionals in Ethiopia who may be interested in this course, and then bring in the other half of the class, you know, another 6 from outside. So a dynamic, interactive Q grading course at your lab. And then before or after, we're going to try to arrange some time where they can learn from you some of the Ethiopian coffee processing, see Addis.
Like roasters who actually comes here and they see the environment where the coffee is actually growing, they meet the people behind it, and they sort of get a real feeling for how they could talk about their coffees to their consumers. It's very dynamic. So that's also part of it, right? But to understand that, be here and actually get the understanding of that, helps tremendously.
Right. When you can see how hard it is just to travel to a place and go on a farm tour with Seife, you start to understand why it's actually important to pay $4, $5, $6 a pound for your green coffee. It was so hard just to get a taxi or lunch or visit a place. How difficult to take a highly volatile, fragile product like coffee cherries to the mill, process them. I mean, that is a lot of work. And we start to value what we work for, right? And so in the future, you would love to open up as well for some of these potential buyers if they're saying, I'd love to buy a mixed container with you, Seife, but I should probably visit and invest in the front end. Can I come see the coffees before harvest or sometime?
I'm so grateful for every visitor I have here.
Yeah.
And it's actually also how an experience that many of the roasters buyers bring with them. So coffee for me is also meeting people, and it's a meeting with people. So I love the meeting between the buyers and the farmers. I mean, imagine like a farmer gets his own coffee, to see his own coffee package coming from a buyer down here in Ethiopia. It is a tremendous lifter for that person. I mean, of course, money matters, but these things matters so much also. So, and that meeting, I've seen how touched everybody are in that meeting. So I really encourage people to come here and do that, whether they visit me or somebody else, but please come. And Ethiopia is also like, I usually say like one of the two things that Ethiopia has is like great coffee and great people.
Yeah.
So they are so humble, especially outside in the rural areas. It's so nice people. So yeah.
I was amazed when so before June World of Coffee 2019, I came to Addis for my first visit in May. And I was just struck by, as you say, the beauty of the country, but the people and the culture. There was just such a pride and a strength that I could really see like there's something unique and special about Ethiopia. And it is a fantastic place to visit. I'm really excited to visit coffee farms where mangoes and bananas and avocados are hanging everywhere as coffee's on the ground. I mean, you just painted a picture of like the Garden of Eden for me. That was amazing. Yeah, it's okay. So let's wrap this up. I am going to be offering down below. You have these beautiful coffee maps that you're going to be offering for download. So we're going to link those in the description. And then you would also like us to be able to connect with you. You prefer Instagram. Is there anything else? You'll share those in our description, right?
Yeah, so I mean, definitely my email and my webpage.
Okay.
You get a lot of information and so on my webpage. If you want to see like updated things, the Instagram is absolutely the best place to follow me at Seife Coffee. In one word. And then, I mean, if you have some specific request or a question or anything, just send me an email. Be that young, hungry person who sent me the email I did in the beginning when I started my journey.
Right.
I promise you to answer.
If people want samples from you, you have a great request sample form built into your website. And you will send out samples. You may have last year's crop right now on some, and you'll be waiting for next year's. Those will be opening up and available maybe January. That'll start.
Say like more, it's more correct to say like now we are in the current crop still.
Right.
So even if we start processing now in October, so these coffees are really fresh, really good quality, and the shelf life of them are good and so on.
Right.
So the new samples will start to come out in the real good ones will be in January.
Right. So we have current crop ready. Yeah, yes. Current crop ready. What you'll be picking and processing, that's not until January 2022. So if they join our Q course and they come to Addis, they can just take it home in their suitcase.
Yeah. At that time in March, that will be easy for them to, because that's a perfect time to come for cupping the new crop. It's perfect. So I really like to come on this course. We put it in a really good timing.
Right.
So we will actually cup fresh coffees from that harvest. Both from all the regions and like specialty preparations and all these things. I will invite you for good things there.
And some injera and good food too.
Yes.
This has been fantastic. So I also want to offer everyone who's listening, I love to throw out discounts and codes. So they get a green coffee code if you check up above here or down below in the description. Sign up for a Green Coffee Foundation course. I already included a Sensory Foundation course code in the previous one. Start taking some courses with the SCA. Get ready for your Q courses. They're coming up. And we're going to connect people with you. So right now, we want people to connect with you directly for samples. In the future, we are hoping as well to continue this relationship and bring more of your coffees into the United States, because you've got some good access in Europe and some other places. I know there's a lot of American roasters who would flip if they could have Seife's coffees and represent the hard work that you're doing with farmers. So people can sign up on the email list as well, and just stay tuned for coffee offerings as well as course offerings.
Yeah, I mean, definitely they should contact you for sampling. I mean, I think it's fair to say that, I mean, they will access my coffees for the coming harvest.
Yeah, 2022.
Yeah, exactly.
That's exciting. Seife, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for the work you're doing. You've done so much work over there. I think you need to take a vacation before you enter into this coffee harvest season. Yes. What are you looking forward to as you approach the coffee harvest season? And just give us some last words of encouragement as we say goodbye.
I mean, so I've been here. I mean, everybody knows the situation with COVID and so on. So it's been less traveling and so on. I usually travel a lot and, go to the exhibitions and so on, but I haven't been to any exhibition the last almost 1.5 years. So I'm looking really forward. I'm actually gonna go back to Sweden and spend some time with my kids, and have 2 weeks of a vacation, eating a lot of great hamburgers and just chilling out there. That's what I'll be doing.
Yeah, well, take your warm clothes, because I know you're leaving the tropics for the cold winter.
Yeah. But it's gonna be great hanging out with these things.
That's good. Well, thank you for being part of the community, for the work that you do. I encourage everyone to check out your coffees, and until next time, goodbye. We'll talk again.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you for having me. Really, I do appreciate this. Take care, my friend.
Take care. Goodbye.